Two police officers stopped a black woman for no reason, no respect, insulting words, blatant abuse of power. Little did they know that this woman was the deputy director of the CIA and would make them pay dearly. Thank you so much for being here. But before we get into the story, tell us where you're hearing this story from and how awesome is your country? If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another special story for you. Olivia Reynolds walked out of the luxurious conference hall with a satisfied smile. Today's conference, organized by Mayor Robert Sinclair, had been a great success. Olivia, the deputy director of the CIA, was a keynote speaker, and her speech on national security had received enthusiastic applause from the attendees, including the city's top leaders. She felt proud to have contributed in a small way to the safety of the country, but now all she wanted to do was go home and rest after a long day. Olivia's black SUV glided smoothly on the deserted road. It was past 9 p.m., the streetlights flickering through the car window, reflecting her thoughtful eyes. She thought about the next projects, the great goals that still lay ahead. Suddenly, in her rear-view mirror, Olivia noticed the flashing red and blue lights of a police car. A short siren sounded. Olivia frowned. She wasn't speeding. She wasn't breaking any traffic laws. Why was the police stopping her? Olivia pulled over slowly, carefully turning on her hazard lights. In her rear-view mirror, she saw two police officers get out of the car. They were both white men, wearing uniforms, and they didn't seem to be in any hurry. Olivia sensed something was wrong. The first policeman, a tall man with a cold face, approached her car window. He tapped the glass with a defiant finger. Olivia rolled down the window, keeping her voice calm. "Hello, gentlemen. What's the matter?" The policeman smirked, his eyes sweeping over Olivia disdainfully. "Your license and papers," he said, his voice gruff, without explanation. Olivia was surprised. She knew her rights. The police were required to give a specific reason for stopping her, but she didn't want any trouble. She slowly opened her bag, took out the necessary papers, and handed them to the officer. He took them without a word of thanks, turned, and walked back to his patrol car. The second cop, shorter but sharp-eyed, stood near her car, arms crossed, watching her intently as if searching for something unusual. He scanned Olivia from head to toe, then smirked. "Wow, that's a nice car. Must have cost a pretty penny," he said, his voice thick with meaning. Olivia kept her composure, though she was starting to feel uneasy. "My car was perfectly legal. I don't think I did anything wrong to warrant a stop," she replied, her voice firm. The second officer shrugged. "We'll decide whether you're wrong or not. Just sit here." Olivia felt anger rising inside her, but she fought it. As a woman of color, she was used to facing prejudice, but that didn't make it any easier. She told herself to stay calm. In the rear-view mirror, she saw the first officer checking her papers in the patrol car. He seemed unhurried, occasionally turned to talk to his colleague, both of them giggling. Olivia knew this was more than just a check of papers. It was a show of power. After a few minutes, the first cop returned, tossing her papers out the window. "Everything looks fine," he said, but then added sarcastically, "But you need to cooperate a little more." Olivia frowned. "More cooperation? What do you mean?" "We want to check your car," the second officer said, approaching, his hand on his waistband, as if ready to draw his gun. Olivia was surprised. "Search the car. I have no contraband, and you don't have a warrant." "I refuse." "You have no right to refuse," the first officer replied, his eyes challenging. "We are police. When we ask, you must obey." Olivia felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her composure. She had been in dangerous situations enough on the job, and she knew how to control her emotions. "You have no right to search my car without a warrant. This is a violation of my civil rights," she said clearly, her voice firm. The two officers looked at each other, their expressions filled with surprise, but quickly turned to sarcasm. Olivia knew she was in for a rough fight, but she also knew she wasn't alone. The hidden camera in the car was recording everything. "Listen, miss," the second cop said, his voice dripping with malice. "Don't make this difficult. Don't think you're anyone important. To us, you're just a black woman in a nice car. His words were like a knife piercing Olivia's pride, but she didn't show any emotion. Instead, she gently placed her hands on the steering wheel, keeping her voice calm. If you don't give me a valid reason, I have the right to refuse, and I advise you to think carefully before continuing to violate my rights. The atmosphere became tense. One of the officers stepped back, signaled to his partner, and the two began to discuss something. Olivia knew that this battle was far from over. She only hoped that what was about to happen would not go too far, but her instincts told her to prepare for the worst. Olivia sat bolt upright in the car, her hands gripping the steering wheel. The flashing lights of the police cars illuminated her face, and she wore the same stern, calm demeanor she usually wore in difficult situations. But this time, she was facing not just a professional challenge, but a personal humiliation. The first police officer took a step forward, knocking hard on Olivia's hood, signaling her to get out. Feeling the tension in the air, Olivia opened the car door and stepped out. The elegant black suit she wore further accentuated her confident and authoritative appearance. But the two police officers' eyes showed only contempt when they saw her, a woman of color. "Stand still," the second officer ordered, his hand still near the gun at his side. "We're going to search your car." Olivia frowned. "I made it clear that you did not have a search warrant, and I do not agree. This is an abuse of power. Who do you think you are to lecture us?" The first officer chuckled, stepping closer to Olivia, his voice filled with sarcasm. "Listen, miss, you should be reasonable and cooperate. You don't want us to make things more difficult, do you?" Olivia felt a wave of anger rising inside her, but she knew that letting her emotions show at this moment would only make the situation worse. Taking a deep breath, she kept her voice calm. "I have nothing to hide, but I have the right to defend myself against abuse of power. Your actions are not only wrong, but they are a serious violation of my civil rights." The second cop laughed, his expression full of derision. "Civil rights? You think you're a lawyer or a politician?" Olivia didn't answer. Instead, she gently touched the watch on her wrist, a device that could activate her second hidden camera, making sure every detail was clearly recorded. She knew that every word and action would be recorded as evidence. "Enough," the first officer shouted, stepping closer to Olivia. "Don't make me use force." Olivia frowned, but kept her voice calm. "I advise you to think carefully before continuing. Your wrong actions will lead to serious consequences. Are you trying to scare us?" The second officer yelled, his eyes flashing with anger. "Listen, you're just a black woman in a fancy car. That doesn't mean you can fool us. Who do you think you are?" Olivia clenched her fists, feeling the humiliation reaching her limits. But instead of responding with anger, she decided to warn them one more time. "I will say this is the last time you are violating my rights, and this action will affect not only you, but also your careers." The second officer laughed, but the mockery in his smile quickly faded as he saw his partner growing impatient. "Okay, if you don't cooperate, we'll do it our way," the first officer said, walking toward Olivia's car, preparing to check it. Olivia immediately blocked the road, her voice sharp. "If you touch my car without a warrant, you will be held responsible before the law." Her words cut through the tense atmosphere like a knife. "You will be held responsible before the law." Her words cut through the tense atmosphere like a knife, causing the policeman to pause for a moment. But instead of stopping, he turned, pulled out his gun, and pointed it at Olivia. "You think you can order us around?" he shouted. "Remember who has the power here." Olivia felt her heart rate increase, but her face remained calm. She raised her hands, her eyes never leaving the gun pointed at her. "Put the gun down," she said firmly. "Not only is this against the law, it puts you in a situation from which you cannot return." The second policeman now opened her car door with a smug look on his face. In that tense moment, Olivia slowly took out her phone, moving slowly so as not to agitate the tense police officer in front of her. She dialed Mayor Robert Sinclair's number, her voice remaining calm. "Sir, I have a problem with 2 police officers in the city. I need your immediate intervention. The location is 13A Street. The mayor, though surprised, immediately recognized the seriousness in Olivia's tone. "I'll be there shortly. Stay safe and don't escalate the situation," he said. Olivia nodded, her eyes never leaving the gun. She knew that her calmness was her strongest weapon at the moment. Who did you just call? Your accomplice? Let's see who a person like you can call, the policeman said arrogantly. Olivia did not answer, just looked at him coldly. Minutes passed, but to Olivia, every second felt like a century. She could feel the mockery in the policeman's eyes, but she also knew that the truth would soon be revealed and justice would be on her side. As the lights of the mayor's car appeared at the end of the street, Olivia felt a strange aura permeate the tense atmosphere. The policeman holding the gun flinched, his eyes filled with confusion as he saw a luxury SUV approaching. At the same time, the sheriff's car appeared right behind him. What? Who invited them? The policeman with the gun muttered, his tone clearly lacking confidence. Olivia, still calm despite the dangerous situation, did not respond. She knew that things were about to change. Mayor Robert Sinclair was the first to step out of the car. His tall, commanding presence made the air seem thick. He said nothing, but walked straight toward the scene, his sharp eyes fixed on the two policemen. Behind him, Sheriff William Prescott followed, his face as stern as if carved from stone. William was a man dedicated to justice and did not tolerate any wrongdoing on his force. What the hell is going on here? The mayor's voice rang out, sharp as a knife, cutting through the deadly silence. The two policemen looked at each other, confusion written all over their faces. The policeman holding the gun lowered his hand, but kept the gun in his hand, as if afraid of losing the last bit of power. Mr. Mayor, he stammered, we are on a mission to check on a suspicious subject. Suspicious? Robert Sinclair interrupted, his eyes fixed on the officer. You just pointed a gun at one of the most important people in this country, and you dare call her a suspicious person? Both policemen were stunned. The mayor's words were like a bomb exploding in their heads. They glanced at Olivia, their faces filled with suspicion and fear. Who is she? The second policeman asked timidly, his voice hoarse. Allow me to introduce you, Robert said, his voice dripping with anger. This is Olivia Reynolds, Deputy Director of the CIA, who had just finished an important conference to which I personally invited her. Both policemen turned pale. The policeman holding the gun took a step back, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Police Chief William Prescott stepped forward, his eyes burning. What did you two just do? Who gave you the right to abuse your power, insult, and threaten an innocent citizen, not to mention point a gun at her? We don't know. The first policeman stammered, but his sentence was cut off. Don't know, Olivia said, her voice sharp. You don't know who I am, but that doesn't give you the right to insult, to be racist, to abuse your power. Citizenship is not based on status or position. Today you crossed all the lines. Chief William Prescott turned to Olivia, his voice soft but still serious. Olivia, I will make sure that these two police officers will be held accountable to the law. I am very sorry for what happened. Olivia nodded, her eyes never leaving the two policemen. She pressed a button on her smartwatch, turning off the hidden camera that had recorded the entire incident. Chief, she said, their entire actions and words were recorded. I will turn this video over to Internal Affairs. Robert Sinclair turned to William Prescott, his voice filled with indignation. I want these two men suspended immediately. I will personally oversee this investigation. No one has the right to act like this, especially while wearing a police uniform. William Prescott nodded, turning to the two policemen. You heard me. You are suspended immediately. Turn in your badges and guns now. The policeman holding the gun hesitated, but when he saw the angry look in the police chief's eyes, he reluctantly took off his belt and placed the gun on the hood of the car. The other policeman followed suit, his face lowered, not daring to look at anyone. Olivia looked at the two men before her, feeling relieved but also bitter. She knew that the story was just a small part of a larger picture of injustice that many people suffered every day. But she also knew that today justice had been served. Mayor Robert Sinclair placed a hand on Olivia's shoulder, his voice softening. Olivia, I'm sorry for what you've been through. This city doesn't deserve people like them on its police force. I'll make sure they get what they deserve. Olivia nodded, her voice filled with determination. Thank you, sir, but I don't just want them punished. I want to make sure no one else has to go through this again. The system needs a change, and people like us have a responsibility to make sure it does. Robert Sinclair nodded, his eyes shining with sympathy. You're right. We will do whatever it takes to change. Olivia turned back to look at the two policemen standing with their heads bowed on the side of the road. She said nothing more, but her eyes said it all. Disappointment, but also a determination to not give in to injustice. Chief William Prescott signaled to his two waiting colleagues to take the two officers away. In the flickering light, Olivia stood still, watching silently. Inside her, the fire for justice burned stronger than ever. In the days after the incident, Olivia's hidden camera footage was handed over to police's internal investigation team, which was not made public and was only circulated internally. However, a nearby resident accidentally recorded the entire incident from start to finish and posted it on social media. The incident quickly went viral, causing a stir in public opinion. The image of a police officer pointing a gun at Olivia, a woman of color, in the middle of the night on a deserted street, became a symbol of the injustice that many people have to endure. Newspaper articles, news programs, and celebrities all spoke out about the incident. Thousands of people expressed support for Olivia, not only because she was a deputy director of the CIA, but also because she had the courage to confront injustice and bring the truth to light. Within days, an internal investigation team had completed a detailed report on the incident. They determined that the two officers had not only abused their power, but had also seriously violated the police force's code of conduct. Both officers were fired. The officer who wielded the gun, Mark Thompson, was charged with abuse of power, threatening with a weapon, and racial profiling. During the trial, Thompson's attorney tried to argue that he was just doing his job and felt threatened. However, Olivia's video was irrefutable evidence. Ultimately, Mark was sentenced to 6 years in prison and lost all his rights and titles on the police force. The other officer, Ethan Brooks, was charged with complicity, assault, and abuse of power. Although he did not directly use a weapon, his complicity, violation of civil rights by illegally checking vehicles, and discriminatory language were inexcusable. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Mayor Robert Sinclair and Police Chief William Prescott held a public press conference to apologize to Olivia and the community. We apologize for the unacceptable actions of 2 of our officers, Mayor Sinclair said. This city is committed to zero tolerance for racism or abuse of power. We will work to improve our system and ensure that justice is served fairly. Olivia also attended the press conference. In her speech, she did not hide her frankness. This incident is not a personal issue. This is a wake-up call for the entire system. There will be no change if we only not hide her frankness. This incident is not a personal issue. This is a wake-up call for the entire system. There will be no change if we only deal with individuals without looking at the entire system. Justice is not just about punishing the wrongdoer, but also about ensuring that this never happens again. Following the incident, Police Chief William Prescott announced a series of reforms to address abuse of power and racism in the police force. The measures include 1. All police officers on the force must attend training courses on professional ethics, conflict resolution, and eliminating bias. 2. Each patrol team will be equipped with mandatory surveillance cameras, and the data will be regularly checked by the internal investigation team. 3. An independent system is being set up so that people can report police misconduct safely and confidentially. 4. She worked to hire more people from underrepresented communities to ensure fair representation. For Olivia, this was not only a personal victory, but also a motivation for her to continue fighting for social justice. She used her influence to participate in many forums and conferences on justice reform, calling for solidarity and change in the system. Olivia's story is not only a reminder of the injustices that still exist, but also a testament to the power of courage and belief in justice. It has inspired thousands to stand up for their rights and for a more just society. Over the next few months, the city slowly changed. Reforms were implemented and the tense atmosphere in the community began to dissipate. Olivia, despite her busy work at the CIA, always made time to support social organizations, continuing her mission of building a better future. Looking back, she knows that night was not just a test, but also an opportunity to affirm the power of steadfastness and integrity. and in her heart, her belief in justice still burns fiercely. Thank you for taking the time to read the whole story. If you love this content, don't forget to click like, share this story with friends and family, and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next Meaningful in Family, and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next meaningful stories.